Today I'm making a super simple and delicious meatloaf, complete with sides including mashed potatoes, baked carrots, and roasted tomatoes. So first I like to prepare my carrots and put them in a bowl. I'll slice them up into about 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick pieces, put them in a bowl and set them aside. And now I'm going to prepare my onions, give them a good dice. For meatloaf, I like to give them an extra fine dice so you don't get big crunchy pieces, and a little bit of a cry is okay. Then I'll save the scraps for making some vegetable stock later. Look at that food saver bag. That was frozen meat, and I know I don't thaw it out ahead of time. I use the microwave. I am a little bit crazy like that. So I'm going to put that in a bowl. Let's get started on the meatloaf. I'm going to mash it with this fancy little doodad, add some panko breadcrumbs, about 1 cup, that onion I chopped earlier very finely, some milk. Then we'll do 1 large egg. I love cracking eggs, so fun. And now I'll add a little bit of ketchup and some Worcestershire. Now it's time for parsley, a little bit of salt, some garlic powder, and black pepper. Now we'll give that a good mix. I start with this fancy little doodad, and then after that I get a fork to finish mixing it without over mixing it. Just makes it a little bit easier. Now I don't have a loaf pan, so instead I just line a baking sheet and I'll very carefully put my meat mixture out onto it, and then I'll do a fun little shaping here. You can make whatever shape you want this way too. This is actually one of the fun parts. After that, I'm going to mix up the sauce to go on top. This one's a little bit unique, but it's really delicious. A little bit of ketchup, that's the usual thing. Then I'm just going to add some brown sugar and a really nice balsamic vinegar. This gets really nice and sweet when it bakes in the oven, so I think you're going to be really nicely surprised when you try this one. Now we're going to bake it in the oven at 350 degrees for about 55 minutes, or until the internal temperature is about 165 degrees. And now I'm going to prepare the carrots with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. Mix that up so that way it's nicely coated, make a little mess. Some kosher salt. Now I like to add the seasoning, mix it up, and then add it again so that way there's no big bites of salt or other seasonings. A little bit of black pepper. And that's all the seasoning that I use for baked carrots, because the carrots have a really nice sweetness and they only get sweeter when you bake them. So you only need kosher salt and pepper, and you can use fresh cracked pepper if that's your cup of tea. And we'll get that out in 1 layer on the baking sheet that I've lined with parchment. You can use foil though if you like. And then we'll give it a little shake, which is kind of fun. And then we're going to set that aside until it's time to put it in with the meatloaf. And next, I'm going to actually prepare these leftover tomatoes that I had. I had just kind of a mishmash of all kinds of different tomatoes. These are homegrown tomatoes that were ready to cook, and these are leftover from a charcuterie tray I did over the weekend. So I'm just going to throw in the red tomatoes. Then I'm going to season with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, some of that balsamic that is so good. This is a really good balsamic. Kosher salt again. I highly recommend using kosher salt and not table salt. And then we'll add some black pepper and garlic. Now don't kill me, I know I use the jarred garlic. It's not as potent, but it gets the job done, and we just love garlic, so I have to have a lot on hand. Now give those tomatoes a good mix, make a little mess of course, put them on a baking sheet in 1 even layer. And we'll set those aside again until it's time to bake. And about 30 minutes left of cooking time, I like to add both the baked carrots and the tomatoes to get those done about the same time as the meatloaf. Now I'm going to start my smashed potatoes. These ones are russet potatoes, but I usually use gold potatoes because you don't have to peel gold potatoes. So I just chop these in about the same uniform size. 1 inch by 1 inch is usually a good size for me. Top it with about 1 inch of water, and then I'm going to add regular table salt to this. It looks like a lot of salt, but it's not that much, honestly. Then I'll put those on the stove, set it to high, and let it boil for about 15 minutes or until I poke it with a fork and they fall apart. And now I'm going to mix the carrots and check the tomatoes and make sure that they are looking really good. After that, I'm going to check my potatoes and strain them when they're ready, and I'll put them back on the stove and turn the heat up just to get some of the water out. It takes about a minute or so, and just shake it around. Now I like to smash the potatoes and then add all my mix-ins. And honestly, normally I melt the butter with some milk on the stovetop, but I burned it this time. So I'm just gonna add the butter straight to the potatoes with some sour cream and some milk and garlic powder. You can make these however you like. You can add cheese or bacon too to make kind of a loaded smashed potato. So good. I always love smashed potatoes. I could eat these every single day. But I digress. Now that the meatloaf is ready, check it out. Lots of yummy corners and side pieces there too, and everything is all ready to go, so I'm gonna go ahead and plate. I always do the mashed potatoes first, followed by the meatloaf and the sides. We're a family of 4. I have a toddler and a 5-year-old. They don't eat a ton, so this meal has a lot of leftovers. So for us, there's enough for lunch the next day or to even make meatloaf sandwiches. Definitely one of my favorite meals to prepare. If you decide to try this recipe, please let me know in the comments and let me know if there's any changes that you made to make your meal more tasty and what side dishes that you like to serve with meatloaf. I'm always looking for more tips. If you like this video, please give it a little thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Turn that little bell on to get notifications every time I post.